Estamos de regreso con el señor Larry Hamma. Mi nombre es Carlos Joy Moisés y esto es para artesanal.com y Comic Manía. Now, you were talking about character before the cut, and the one thing that I remember most vividly out of all those comic books, because I love them all, was the silent interlude in issue number 21. It was exactly what you're talking about. After you have the characters, you establish who they are, you know what the personality is they don't need to talk because you know how they're going to react. That comic book was amazing. I loved it, even though it was kind of sad because I remember that day that I bought it. It was the only comic book that I had to get that week. So I got it home and I read it in 10 seconds because you just and I go, wait a second, that was kind of quick. So I read it again and I thought it was amazing. And it was so amazing that many years later, Marvel did Enough Said month where every comic book in the Marvel arena had no words. So you must be really proud of that.
I was sort of pissed off.
It's okay, no problem. It's YouTube. There's no rules. Go ahead.
They didn't bother to even ask me to write one.
I hadn't thought of that.
You know, they never even acknowledged that I did that.
Well,
you know,
hopefully the fans knew that, and I'm letting them know right now.
Plus, Marvel put out a special book, with stories about, 9/11.
Yeah.
And out of all those people that contributed to that book, I was the only one who was actually there.
What's up with Marvel? I don't get it. What do they? That's the one thing that I really saddens me about DC and Marvel. Sometimes
no.
They don't
it's business. It's always been this way, I never expected anything different because, when I was an editor at Marvel, I remember the editor-in-chief came down the hall and he went to every editor's office, and he was begging editors to get some work for Steve Ditko, and I was thinking, was Steve Ditko? Created Spider-Man that your company is based on. Why is it?
Strange, yeah.
But that's look. Neil Adams went to DC Comics one day, and one of the guys that created Superman was in the hall delivering photostats for minimum wage. So that's what prompted Neil to hire lawyers and
fight for the rights.
Fight for rights.
Now let me ask you something, and if I'm overstepping my bounds, please just stop me. You mentioned you were there in 9/11. Now after so many years of writing comic books, there are like war comics at the end of the day. To be right there at ground zero or nearby or close by, how did it shake you to the very core of your being? Writing about something so many times, but it's far away. But when you're living it, I mean, that must just bring the war home.
Well, it's where you find out whether you can really function in those situations. If you just keep on, some people I saw, they just didn't know what to do. They just sort of, froze up. I live right there, and it was election day. I was at the local school because I was being a poll watcher.
Oh, I see.
And the plane went right over our heads. The first plane went right over our heads, and I saw the second plane turn. I was standing on the street, and the plane made a turn and came into the building from the other side, and the whole front of the building that was facing us just exploded in flame. And it felt like when you open a hot oven.
I see. Oh, okay. Yeah.
An oven door, like the heat on our faces. We were 3 blocks away. We felt the heat on our faces, and then I went home, and my apartment faced the World Trade Center. You could see the towers from our living room, and we started to see people jump. We saw it, and it was so horrible, but you couldn't look away. And then I looked out on the street, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people on the corner looking up. So I was looking down when I saw the entire crowd on the street like one person like turn and run north. And then I looked up, and that's when I saw the tower was falling. But yeah, I understand that, like, you know, half the world saw it live on television.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just to be right there was pretty amazing. We couldn't go back to our apartment for 7 weeks. They closed off the whole area. So we didn't have a toothbrush. but yeah, that's why I found it really odd that, you know, Marvel put out a whole book about it. I was like, you know, the thing is, I think I was a non-person at Marvel at that point.
That's very sad, and the thing is, you contributed a lot. Like before we did this interview, I decided to look at all the covers of the stuff that you've done, and I saw you did very little Avengers, but you did a lot of Wolverines. And back then, if I remember correctly, I mean, if it had a Wolverine, people were buying it, and you got to work with Mark Silvestri, Mark Dexteria, and one of the Kubers.
Adam Kubert.
So I'm guessing that book was selling like hotcakes. I mean, so you made a lot of money for the company, and for them to treat you like that, I mean, that's very sad for me as a reader, because I go, you know, Marvel doesn't write. They own the characters, but they don't write the comics that I love. You guys do.
No, you don't understand. A corporation is in the business of making money.
Yeah.
A corporation is not in the business of, you know, facilitating, you know, artists. Those are two very different things. If you want to, you know, reap the real rewards of your art, you have to invest your own money.
I see.
And own your own
Creation.
Yeah. Because, you know, the logic that the corporations have is, oh, they're taking the risk.
Oh, I see.
You know, and so they, but legally, you know, in order for them to do anything further with the character, they have to own everything 100%. That's the problem. And that's why they do what they do.
Okay. We have to go to a little cut. We'll come right back and talk about some other characters that you've written. Regresamos con un poco más del señor Larry Hamma.